Hello everyone, welcome to our Australia and New Zealand Peppol E-invoicing Showcase and our first event as the Association of Digital Service Providers Australia and New Zealand, or DSPANZ. My name is Simon Foster and I'm the President of DSPANZ and Co-Chair of the E-invoicing Subcommittee. At this point, I'd like to hand over to my colleague, Matt Lewis.
Thanks, Simon, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Lewis, and I'm the other co-chair of the DSPANZ e-invoicing subcommittee. And when I'm not doing that, my normal day job is founder and CEO of CapabilityWise, a digital consultancy that specialises in government and corporate transformation. Back to you, Simon.
Thanks, Matt. And before we get started, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I would also like to take this opportunity to extend this acknowledgement to the Maori peoples of New Zealand, Aotearoa.
Thanks, Simon. And it's great to see we've started to incorporate New Zealand into our Welcome to Country and our broader events program. This really kind of starts to reflect the recent DSPANZ rebrand and our broad membership across the Trans-Tasman. And on that note, I'd like to invite two special guests to kick off our showcase. From Australia, it's my pleasure to introduce Senator the Honourable Jane Hume, Minister for Superannuation, Financial Services and the Digital Economy, and also Minister for Women's Economic Security.
I'd like to welcome everyone to the Digital Service Providers Australia and New Zealand E-invoicing Showcase. As Australia's Minister for the Digital Economy, it's a pleasure to welcome you to this important event for Australia and New Zealand businesses. Digital technologies are already a huge part of our lives. They help us to learn, to work more efficiently, and to connect with people and services. Through the events of the last 18 months, they've also provided both a lifeline and an opportunity for our citizens and our businesses. The Morrison government's recently launched $1.2 billion digital economy strategy is a living plan designed to ensure that we have the right infrastructure, skills, settings and services in place to prepare Australia's businesses for the economy of the future. It's the private sector that will propel the Australian economy forward, that will make the great productivity gains necessary to create the jobs and innovations that will raise living standards for all. But as Minister for the Digital Economy, I recognise the need for government to both lead by example and signal to businesses the directions we want to go. And that's why the Australian Government has been leading the way with Australia's e-invoicing rollout. Since the 1st of January 2020, the Australian Government agencies have been paying e-invoices within 5 days and paying interest on any late payments for contracts up to $1 million, where both the buyer and the supplier both use Peppol e-invoicing systems. The value we see in e-invoicing is reflected in our commitment for all Commonwealth agencies to be e-invoicing compliant by the 1st of July 2022. In addition, we have recently announced in this year's budget that we will invest a further $15.3 million to support accelerating business adoption of e-invoicing, including encouraging adoption through state and local government agencies and through supported trials in the private sector with extensive supply chains. We know that it costs businesses around $30 to process a paper invoice and $27 for an emailed PDF invoice. In contrast, it costs less than $10 to process an e-invoice. The difference is due to the time saved and not having to manually handle each invoice. So this means an estimated shared saving between the sender and the receiver of the invoice by around $20 each time e-invoicing replaces a paper invoice. And with an estimated 1.9 billion invoices issued in Australia every year, expanding the prevalence of e-invoicing will significantly improve the productivity of Australian businesses by facilitating faster payment times, more accurate invoicing, and improved cash flow. We recognise that there is a cost to business to adopt e-invoicing technology and processes, but equally, we think that the cost reduction benefits when e-invoicing is used widely outweigh the short-term investment in migrating to an e-invoicing system. E-invoicing is only useful when there is a large network of users. So our government's goal is to accelerate e-invoicing adoption to a high level to ensure that its potential benefits can be fully realised. We'll be conducting further consultation with industry and businesses in the coming months to determine the most appropriate path forward to encourage uptake of e-invoicing. And I would welcome and encourage you all to engage with this process, which will be conducted by Treasury, to ensure that the next chapter of Australia's e-invoicing journey is the right one. Thank you for allowing me a chance to speak with you today. Enjoy the event.
And now for a few words on behalf of the New Zealand Government. It's my pleasure to introduce Stuart McRoby, the Chief Financial Officer for the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment.
I'd like to...
Kia ora, tēnā koutou. Greetings from Aotearoa, New Zealand. I'm Stuart McRoby, the Chief Financial Officer at the Ministry of Innovation and Employment, and I'm the sponsor for driving the adoption of e-invoicing in New Zealand. Thanks very much for the opportunity to be able to talk to you today about what we're doing here in New Zealand to encourage businesses and government to adopt e-invoicing. The New Zealand Government has a goal of building a productive, sustainable and inclusive economy, and encouraging the innovative use of technology like e-invoicing supports this goal. It encourages all New Zealand businesses to be digitally enabled and transact directly with one another in an efficient, automated and standardised way. In doing so, e-invoicing will enhance economic performance by making it easier, cheaper and more secure for businesses on both sides of the Tasman to transact with each other and with businesses around the globe. E-invoicing is an initiative that I'm particularly excited about, as it will potentially benefit every business in New Zealand. New Zealand and Australia have chosen the Peppol International E-invoicing standard. MB has been the New Zealand Peppol Authority for more than a year and a half, and we're working closely with our Australian colleagues in relation to the project and how it is implemented. With around 300 million business-to-business invoices each year, there is potential to save billions of dollars on the cost of processing these invoices. E-invoicing will allow more time to be spent growing business and fostering innovation than on administration. Since my time in banking, checkbooks have become almost a thing of the past, and many of us no longer carry cash. I see the e-invoicing project as an initiative that will have similar transformational effects. E-invoicing is a significant enabler in improving invoice payment practices. Late payment and long payment terms are some of the biggest sources of stress and problems for businesses, particularly small businesses. Moving to e-invoicing will enable business and government to streamline invoice processes, enabling payment to be made in a more timely fashion. It will also mean there is less administration and free up ways of following up and accounting accruals as processes occur more quickly. However, it's important to stress that although invoicing helps enable faster payment times, the payment time decision continues to be separate from the invoice issuance and processing. New Zealand has often considered itself to be an early adopter of new technologies, and I expect that e-invoicing will be no different. MB is progressing with the adoption of e-invoicing in New Zealand. Widespread adoption of e-invoicing in the public sector is a critical first step in driving private sector adoption. It is important that all government agencies are e-invoicing enabled and embrace e-invoicing. To that end, the New Zealand Government will be tasked with implementing e-invoicing across New Zealand agencies with receive capability in the near future and a likely mandate on invoice volumes, and I look forward to talking more about this in coming weeks. MB itself is making good progress on a range of initiatives to support the adoption of e-invoicing within the public sector and across the economy more generally, including working closely with the tech community, including small businesses, accounting software providers, along with large system providers who are making their systems e-invoicing capable. So all New Zealand businesses will be able to enjoy the benefits that e-invoicing brings. The MB e-invoicing team, the Australian Taxation Office, e-invoicing service providers and finance system software providers have also agreed to a standard that defines a consistent set of data for an e-invoice. This will make it easier for senders to generate invoices and receivers to process them. We see this as a critical element in the adoption of e-invoicing. We've recently also established an e-invoicing adoption leaders group with people in the most senior roles of large corporates to work together to lead and influence adoption in the private sector. We've had our second meeting recently, and there's a great deal of collaboration amongst members. We're at the early stages of developing our communication strategy and material, including workshops, webinars, and other tools to increase awareness and understand e-invoicing and help government and businesses adopt e-invoicing. All people attending this showcase have the ability to lead and influence the adoption of e-invoicing in the wider business community. Through our collective actions, we're able to support all businesses to thrive and reap the benefits of being more digitally enabled. Ngā mihi and thank you.
As an introduction to our small business accounting vendor panel, we have a special message from the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman, the Honourable Bruce Bilson.
Hi everybody, my name's Bruce Bilson. I'm the Australian Small Business and Family Enterprise Ombudsman, and I'm absolutely pumped to be joining you for this DSPANZ e-invoicing showcase. This is a big deal, and this is a great opportunity to help turbocharge timely payment and convenience for Australia's SMEs. Who would have thought 1.2 billion invoices get exchanged each year in Australia? And of course, the vast majority will be smaller businesses, and many of which will be small business to small business. 20% of those can go astray. 1 in 3 may have incorrect information. It's about $31 to process a paper invoice. You think, ouch, that's expensive. Doing a PDF attached to an email as kind of a slightly more funky option, well, that's still $28 per invoice. Go with e-invoicing, it's $9.18. It gets the information in the hands of the person you'd like to have paying you sooner, so they've got not only the appetite, but the ability to get those timely payments through to your business. We think, done well, e-invoicing deployed across the economy, a $28 billion upside over 10 years. But for time-poor small businesses, think about the opportunity. More cost efficient, fewer friction points, a better use of your time, and an enhanced opportunity to get paid in a timely way. That's why I'm jazzed about this. And that's why I'm encouraging people to talk about their positive experiences. A bit of a shout out to MYOB, to Intuit, to Xero. They're doing their seamless work in the background to make e-invoicing in Australia as simple as posting an account across your chart of accounts. All done without pain, without difficulty, really using technology and deploying it within the business systems to give your business the best chance to get accurate invoicing in the hands of the people that need it in a timely way at lesser cost and improving the prospects for early payment. Why wouldn't you want a piece of that? That's why I'm jazzed to be with you here today and a part of the Champions Adoption Network, where we're looking at what we can do to showcase good practice and early adopters and the upside that they're seeing, the real upside they're seeing of using e-invoicing. That's what today's about. Plenty of practical examples. We're driving hard to get more small business to small business case studies. Let the numbers speak for themselves. But in the meantime, take on board some of the lessons, some of the pathfinding insights, some of the upside that's being shared with you at this showcase, and to hear from Intuit, from Xero, from MYOB about what they're doing to make this as seamless and as simple as possible to make e-invoicing part of the digital engagement of your business. Hope you get plenty out of the showcase. Great to spend a few moments with you.
At this point, I'd like to invite Emma Dobson, one of the directors of DSPANZ, to moderate our panel. Emma.
Sorry, I was muted there for a minute. That was an error. My name is Emma Dobson, and I was a founding member of the Digital Business Council back in New Zealand. Now I am a member of the e-invoicing adoption leaders group. So this to me is something that is very dear to my heart. I'm thrilled to be able to moderate the session today with the panelists, with Simeon, Clinton, and with Matthew. I've got a couple of questions for the guys, and I'm going to start with Simeon. We decided to do this in alphabetical order. And in terms of, from Intuit and your company's perspective, what's your strategy for delivering e-invoicing to small businesses?
Yeah, well, hi, Emma. Thanks for having us on, and kia ora katoa katoa to all my Kiwi cousins over there. Look, Despite all the advances of the digital era, much of our commerce still involves plenty of friction. And one such friction obviously involves antiquated business processes. 2 years ago at Intuit, we refreshed our strategy to become an AI data-driven expert platform. And we declared 5 big bets that are grounded in our customers' biggest problems. Big bet 1, which is our foundational bet, is to revolutionize speed to benefit for our customers. And what that means is our goal is to put more money back in our customers' pockets, eliminate friction, and deliver confidence at every touch point. Related to that is our 4th big bet, which is to become the center of small business growth by helping our customers get customers, get paid fast, manage capital, and pay employees with confidence. And we see that e-invoicing is central to achieving both of those big bets. And look, we believe that the current environment is really acting as an accelerant to those bets. Pretty much everybody's looking for virtual solutions. Small businesses are accelerating their shift to online and omni-channel commerce. And both consumers and small businesses are looking for ways to put more money in their pockets. QuickBooks Online today supports sending and receiving e-invoices by providing our customers a choice of QuickBooks App Store partners to connect to the Peppol E-invoicing network. We were really pleased, it was about September, October last year, to partner with the ATO, Link4, and BOC in an e-invoicing pilot, which demonstrated not only the ease at which QBO, QuickBooks Online customers can avail themselves of e-invoicing, but I think it also showed that large businesses need not replace their existing EDI solutions, that Peppol E-invoicing is accessible and easy for small businesses to access and can run parallel to large business solutions as well.
Thank you very much. And Clinton, from MYOB's perspective, how do you get your small businesses ready for e-invoicing?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Emma. So I think 2 things from me. I think first off, look, it goes without saying that in order to get ready, you need to have accounting software that can support sending and receiving of Peppol e-invoices. And then second, I would think about the selection of your access point provider. You can't send or receive an invoice without one, or send or receive an e-invoice without one. Make sure you only select an accredited, certified access point. And some offer more than just standard e-invoicing services. So consider which of these additional services may be valuable to you and your business. So those are 2 of the practical things that I think stand out to me.
And Matt, you and I have been on this journey now for a while. The Xero lessons and experience.
Definitely, and Emma, we have definitely been on this journey for many years. Xero, like many of the other participants on this call, was a founding member of the Digital Business Council. In terms of e-invoicing in Xero today, so a Xero customer in Australia or New Zealand has the ability to send and receive e-invoices for free from within the Xero platform. So if you've got a Xero invoice enabled software product, so any of our business plans, you have the ability to send and receive Peppol today. And really, in terms of market readiness, a lot of our customers are used to something called the Xero to Xero network to send and receive invoices with other Xero customers. Broadly, the Peppol network is an obvious replacement for that. And it's a really quick and easy process for a small business using Xero to register for e-invoicing, prove their identity, and ultimately enroll on the network. The added upside there is every small business has customers who don't just use Xero. They use other software products, including QuickBooks Online and MYOB. They're now going to be able to exchange and send those invoices with those applications if they're e-invoice enabled. The big step, the critical step for a small business today, if they are even interested or considering e-invoicing, is when they next have a conversation with one of their suppliers or one of their customers. Make it really clear, I'm ready to send and receive an e-invoice. How about you? And actually asking, can I send you an e-invoice? Can you receive an e-invoice from me? That's equally important right now at the very beginnings of this rather exciting network.
No, it's great. And there's a few things that businesses can do, isn't it? They can go and make sure that they have got their ABNs, the New Zealand business numbers, the details are right for the suppliers. If you're a supplier to government, talk to your contract manager and because they'll also get the benefit of the payment times, and check the Peppol directory to see if they're there. And then use the websites of businesses such as Intuit, MYOB and Xero to find out what is going on, as well as obviously DSPANZ in terms of making sure the information is up to date. Guys, have you got any, from listening to the three of you speak, have you got any final things you would like to say to the audience? Simeon, starting with you.
Look, just to reiterate the point you just made there, Emma, about dealing with government, and it was a point made by both Jane and Bruce Bilson as well, that, look, if you are dealing with government, whether it be the federal government or, say, the New South Wales government as well, there are really good incentives to e-invoice them as a supplier with 5-day payment times. So not only are you improving your cash flow with that faster payment, but also you're saving money in sending the invoice in the first place.
Clinton?
Yeah, I think e-invoicing is the single biggest driver today of digitizing the economy. And so I think really any business, and in particular small business, especially post-COVID or in the middle of COVID here in Greater Melbourne, should be exploring the opportunity, and there's a raft of benefits that e-invoicing provides. Yeah, I think you know, speak to, as Matthew mentioned, you definitely want to be speaking to your suppliers and your customers, getting the word out, checking if their software supports sending or receiving invoices.
Matthew?
Probably just that reminder that particularly for New Zealand customers, e-invoicing all starts with an NZBN. Here in Australia, it does start with an ABN. Getting that information in the accounting system today is a really critical and essential step to get ready for e-invoicing. I think this showcase will show that e-invoicing is ready to support businesses, small, large, government and enterprise. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, and we've seen already for both countries, in Australia, SuperStream, single touch payroll, in New Zealand, the introduction of the KiwiSaver with the data standardization and single touch payroll. The differences that they have made by standardizing the data to the economy. This is going to take it to the next level and is essential for productivity benefits for both countries. We're going to be doing this. We need to get this right, and it's incredibly exciting. My advice is get on board early. The businesses that got on board early for both SuperStream, KiwiSaver and single touch payroll absolutely reap the benefits. So go for it, guys. You'll regret it if you don't. Thank you very, very much, and back to the team at DSPANZ.
Excellent, thank you, Emma, and thank you, panel members. So now we move on to the case study section of today's showcase, and MessageXchange is a leading Australian-based EDI provider, B2B integration gateway services provider. I should get the words right. They provide e-invoicing, EDI and single touch payroll, SuperStream and other services to the likes of Costco, the Good Guys, Telstra, the ATO, New South Wales Government and New Zealand's Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment.
And with that, I'd like to introduce Helena Bone, who is the Chief Technology Officer of MessageXchange. Over to you, Helena.
Hello.
And you're there, great.
I think we got some technical problems. Is Glenn here? I thought Glenn going to give us a little bit of introduction of what we did. So Glenn is the from MB. So perhaps I give that, let Glenn to give us introduction of the project itself first.
Certainly, thank you for that, Helena. So kia ora koutou katoa. By way of introduction, I'm Glenn Jenkins, the Business Director, Finance and Performance at MB, Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment in New Zealand. Here today in my capacity as role of business owner of MB's own internal implementation of e-invoicing. So we sit in a unique position. We've got the Peppol Authority here at MB with us, so have the benefit of having them alongside us as partners. Started our journey not too long ago with MessageXchange, and as at today are on the cusp of being ready to receive e-invoices from the market. So look, it's been a good and exciting journey for us. It hasn't been without its challenges, particularly internal process operational challenges, and a really good case study for us to work with the New Zealand Peppol Authority and leverage those experiences for others who want to get on the network. So I'll pass back to you, Helena.
Thanks very much, Glenn. So before I go to the detail, let me just share my screen. Let me know if you could see the screen here.
Yeah, we can see that, Helena.
Wonderful. So what I'm going to give is basically a case study of the e-invoicing implementation that we did for MB. I'm not sure you're familiar with MessageXchange. So we are a integration cloud service provider doing the B2B as well as B2G implementation, and also involved in quite a lot of areas such as invoice, STP, EDI, and SuperStream, which I know Emma mentioned that before, is to be able to encourage people to do digitalization. So we have been in digitalization implementation for a long time, involve a lot of different areas. NB is one of the very big New Zealand government agencies with about 6 billion annual budget, and its purpose to grow New Zealand for all. And as Stuart mentioned, NB is also a Peppol authority in New Zealand, which actively promoting e-invoicing adoption within New Zealand industry as well. Back in August, I think that was August last year, NB issued a RFQ for e-invoicing. So they're looking for an e-invoicing access point, which will provide them with e-invoicing capability. But they're also looking for a partner that has proven record and knowledge with B2B, especially in procurement to pay area as well. And what, as a result of this RP process, they selected MessageXchange as their access point. So just very quickly go through the timeline. The RFQ was issued back in 2020 in August, and they made the decision to select MessageXchange as access point in December. And now we have nearly we completed the testing for e-invoicing in February, and now started in February, and now we are in the cusps, as Glenn mentioned, of go live. So we're expecting to go live in the coming days. So I'm very, very excited about that one. How do we put in the NB e-invoicing solution? So as the first step of it, what NB looking for is implement the account payable flow first, which is receiving invoice from the supplier. Again, through the Peppol E-invoicing network. In this case, MessageXchange is acting as the access point. What NB has is a on-premise technology one system, and which they will receive invoice in CSV format. And I guess one of the guiding principle is while they want to hook into the Peppol network to receive invoice, they want the minimum changes to their account payable or technology one system. So that's where we're putting a place of the MB e-invoicing gateway, which sitting in the middle of the e-invoicing access point and technology one's backend system. So we do all the translation, we do all the negotiation, we do the integration in between. So they will be, so to make NB system to be able to seamlessly integrate with the Peppol network without a big change to their existing implementation or existing account payable process. So how did we manage to do that? So our system is able to map the MB, the Peppol, what we call that UBL Peppol XML into MB's format. In this case, is a CSV format. we're also able to validate, putting some additional validation rules on behalf of MB's system requirement. So it's not just the Peppol's, what we call the generic A-NZ Peppol schematron validation. And we also, I think one of the very important fact is MB system is able to send invoice response message back to the supplier. So as part of the streamlined process, when suppliers send an invoice, they will be able to receive a very instant invoice response if an invoice, for example, is accepted by MB's account payable system, but on a similar manner, if it is rejected, the supplier will be able to inform about a rejection straight away. So they will be able to take action straight away, instantly. And also as part of the MessageXchange functionality, we have all the messaging inbuilt capabilities such as automatic retries, notification, escalation, as well as reporting. So we not just be able to deliver the invoice and invoice response, we also be able to generate reporting, collect business intelligence, so be serve and be to have more, I guess, the business intelligence report and tracking report. So to give them more insight about how the taking up of invoice is going, or even just on the operational level, daily basis, and to be able to have the monitoring and reporting ability to be there. So, so as a result, the entire solution, at least for this stage, account payable point of view, so enable the MB to be able to receive invoice from the Peppol network. So it doesn't matter how the invoice is sent out, as long as sent through Peppol. So before I know, MYOB, Xero, and Intuit, they always e-invoicing capability enabled. So that's very, very exciting, because what that means, it means any supplier, as long as they are able to send out invoice, that invoice be able to automatically flow in through MB's account payable system. As a result, invoice is able to, and also MB is able to send out the invoice response automatically and entirely streamline the invoice payment process and achieve, I guess, one step closer to achieve what we want to achieve, like the, all the benefit that we mentioned about invoice will bring along. So, and similarly, I know we have, so this is one of the case study that we implement for MB, but as we, using the same principle, using the same design pattern, we have implemented e-invoicing solution for many other, I guess, government and agencies, including New South Wales, including ATO, including Inland Revenue. So at least I know at the moment we have been, a lot of government agencies are enabled, Peppol enabled, so to be able to receive invoice. And now we're looking at the supplier side with the SMEs, the cloud accounting system is enabled e-invoicing as well. So that's a very, very exciting steps. I can really see the invoicing invoice ecosystem now is really come into a place where we can really, really push out to the next step. Thank you very much, Simon. Pass to you.
Thank you, Helena, and it's great to see New Zealand and Australian government agencies now coming online and able to receive e-invoices. So I'll get Maggie to put the next slides up. So at this point, it's my pleasure to introduce Xianghua Gyok, Director of the E-invoicing Project Office at the Infocom Media Development Agency of Singapore. And Xianghua will be talking about how Singapore drove increased adoption of e-invoicing in 2020. Xianghua? Go ahead, we can hear you.
Oh, hi. Yeah, just was wondering whether, yeah.
And the slides on the screen.
Have some technical problem here. Thank you, Simon. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone here. I'm glad to be invited here to share the Singapore story on e-invoicing, particularly how we make good of the challenge we had last year and drove our adoption up. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. Well, just over 2 years ago, my colleague attended this same event and shared that we were on the journey to launch our Peppol network, which we did in January 2019. Last year, we saw a significant jump in the businesses on the network from about 1,000 at the start of the year to about 35,000 in December. I'd like to use this session to share what we did. But before that, let me first cover what we have done to ensure that we have an ecosystem in place to support the businesses. So next slide. Yeah, we all know we need access points in the country to support the connection of solutions to the network. Currently in Singapore, we have about 35 access points, and some of you are actually here attending this session. In 2019, we spent a lot of time introducing something we call the concept of a Peppol-ready solution providers, where we, up to this stage, accredited accounting and solution and ERP solutions that the SMEs use. Today, we have about 120 of such solutions that is listed on our website. We also ensured that we have simple and free solutions available in the market so that businesses can quickly jump on board and participate. Some of them are actually provided by the banks. Next slide, please. So all these efforts that we put in is to ensure that we make available a variety of solutions to meet all kinds of different needs in the market. We know that when we scan the whole market, we have to ensure that we are able to connect up with all kinds of different solutions. And in this chart that you can see here, it gets more sophisticated as you go up. So we're happy that in Singapore we have developed this ecosystem, and still, of course, there are more work to be done. Next slide, please. So what happened last year? First thing that we achieved last year was to be able to go live with our government procurement, connecting our government procurement into the network. The Singapore government has about 22,000 suppliers. And of course, with the government being able to receive invoices over Peppol, we promoted the adoption of invoicing to 22,000 suppliers to encourage them to come on board. We started off in January having physical seminars, but then soon after that, we know that COVID hit us and forcing us to go online. We pivoted quickly to promote e-invoicing using webinars instead. And in one of the sessions that we have more than 1,800 participants in a single session. And in subsequent webinars, we also had a lot of participants. Actually, without COVID, we were not able to reach out to so many suppliers and interested parties all directly in one go. So actually, on hindsight, looking at what we had last year in COVID, it caused us to interact with the market differently. And today, it is so much easier for us to organize sessions virtually to be able to enhance our outreach to the market. So that was actually good for us. So, but COVID, of course, as happened everywhere in the world, it affected all the businesses, especially the SMEs. So next slide, please. So for us in Singapore, all the agencies were asked to consider what we can do to help the businesses. And even for our e-invoicing project office, we also lean forward to see in what ways we can help SMEs. Yeah, and we came up with these ideas. We actually introduced two different incentive programs. One incentive program is called the e-invoicing registration grant. This is a very simple program that rewards businesses with 200 Singapore dollars as soon as they register onto the network. So we started that in March and ended the program in December. The second incentive that we introduced is called the Digital Resilience Bonus. This one is something a bit more complicated and higher reward. We provide incentive of up to $10,000 Singapore dollars to businesses who adopts selected suite of solutions to help them in their business. And this incentive is only catered for the food services and retail. And in Singapore, we did this as a pilot to see how we are able to have a scheme that is operationally viable for us to push out quite a lot of money to small and medium businesses so that to help them in this difficult situations. So we know that the food and services and retail were the hardest hit then. Therefore, we piloted with these sectors. And this incentive program is still running on until will end in June this year. One of the conditions for this, for the recipients of this incentive is that they have to be on Peppol E-invoicing. So that gives us both these incentives together, gave us a lot of opportunities to reach out to interested parties and help them to come on board the network. And that really drove our numbers up towards 31,000. And today we have more than 38,000 businesses on the network. So yeah, next slide, please. So one other thing we did last year was rebranding our e-invoicing to what we call Invoice Now. This is important for us because it was quite difficult to explain to the business communities about Peppol e-invoicing. But in Singapore, we have a very popular e-payment solution called Pay Now, and we know that Invoice Now and payment, e-payment works hand in hand. So we rebranded Pay Now to Invoice Now to make it easier for us to bring the message of getting paid faster to the business community. So this is one important initiative for us. So next slide. So our progress has been good. We are happy to see that our large companies such as hotel chain, Pan Pacific, Fujifilm, that we shall hear about in a while by other presenters. We are happy to see also our SMEs coming on board. Next slide. So today is so much easier for us to curate positive testimonies from the businesses on the ground so that we can promote the use of invoicing in the country. So last year was a challenging year, but I think in Singapore we did pretty decent to be able to make good of what challenge we had to drive our adoption up. So next slide. I think I have come to the end of my presentation. So just to also want to wish the effort in Australia and New Zealand to also achieve the similar or even better success than us in Singapore. And we look forward to actually even learn some interesting tricks from here so that we can also continue to drive our adoption. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Songhua. And it's always interesting to learn from our neighbours to the north, and in particular, the way that Singapore government is driving the digital adoption beyond e-invoicing into other types of technologies, and including, you'll note, data mining and other stuff in food and beverage. At this point, I would like to invite our next presenters, which is from Esker, and they're talking about the success story of Fujifilm as they embarked on their journey for accounts receivable automation and e-invoicing in Singapore. Please welcome Eric Meisenhout and Olivier Palermo from Esker. Just need to unmute yourself.
Yes, hi Simon. Sorry guys, thank you very much. Thanks Simon. Welcome to the Esker Fujifilm success story. Next slide, please. I'm going to go through a bit of a Esker overview so that actually people understand where we're coming from and why actually Fujifilm decided to embark on this journey with Esker, and we'll then go into what is the solution that we've put in place at Fujifilm. I'll hand over to my colleague, actually, Olivier, at that stage to talk about the benefits. Next slide, please. So one of the reason I'm putting few numbers there about Esker there, but one of the main reasons why Fujifilm or other large companies like go with our solution, as you can see on the map, is that we're a global company. So although Peppol is quite new locally to A-NZ and on this e-invoicing journey, electronic invoicing has started long ago in other countries and has been actually mandated in many other countries, thinking about Latin America, South America, also in Europe, which started Peppol long ago, but also in some specific countries where there are actually other formats of electronic invoicing that are used, like in Spain, Italy, Portugal, and so on. So just on that point is that I just wanted to mention that some large companies decide to kind of embark on this journey with us because we're a global company and we're kind of ensuring compliance in more than 60 countries around the world. So it's kind of relevant for those companies to actually go with a provider that can help them actually being compliant and ensure this compliance across all these countries. Next slide, please. The other reason also why companies embark on this journey with us is that we're not just e-invoicing provider. So if you look at we kind of ensure all the cash conversion cycle, covering all the procure to pay and order to cash cycle. And next slide, please. The reason why it's relevant there, obviously, when we talk about electronic invoicing, as you can see there, we can ensure and help companies with their accounts payable process, as we are providing this automation there on that side. But as part of this journey also, that comes basically inside the full end-to-end procure to pay process. And similarly, on the order to cash side of things, obviously Peppol or other types of electronic invoicing compliance will be ensured through our electronic invoicing and delivery module. But it's also to be put in place as part of the global end-to-end, right? From taking an order, invoicing, but also collecting and applying cash and getting paid faster, as well as some of our, as it was said previously. Next slide, please. So when it comes to Peppol itself, Esker operates in the four corners. As you can see on the left-hand side, we can help suppliers sending their invoices. Our accounts receivable solution actually helps with the transition. This is an important thing that you have to understand, is that there will be a transition to take the supplier from moving from, in some countries where there's still a lot of paper, to actually maybe moving as a first step to automating the sending of invoices as a PDF attached to an email, and then potentially to EDI, and then to Peppol, and so on, all the formats, right? So this accounts receivable solution that is put in place as the back of the ERP can take any format and then deliver the invoices according to the customer preference. Obviously, when it comes to Peppol, we have a hook and connected to our Esker access point, as we are accredited in Europe, Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, and then that would deliver to the network, to the Peppol network. Similarly, at the other end, we are an access point. Through our access point, we can receive, obviously, invoices through Peppol, but also in any format. As you can see, Peppol invoices will plug into our accounts payable solutions, because you have to think also again about the full end-to-end process there. We are working at the moment with one of the actually Australian largest supermarket chain is a customer of us, using our accounts payable solution to process their invoices received as scanned, because some are still received as paper, but also as PDF emails and so on. And basically we've just plugged the Peppol connector, so that I can call it this way, so that they can basically receive their invoices via Peppol. That means slowly, without changing anything in their accounts payable solution, they can move slowly customers to Peppol, and then still follow the same standardized process in accounts payable to validate an invoice, approve it, send invoice responses, messages, and so on, match to POs and so on, and then that's transparently integrating basically into their ERP. Next slide, please. When it comes to Fujifilm, Fujifilm has implemented our solution for accounts receivable, and then are transmitting obviously through our access point there. And as you can see on this diagram, then we can reach out to any other access point, any other of their customers. And I will hand over to my colleague Olivier there, who's know exactly what's been implemented at this at Fujifilm there.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. So I'm Olivier. I'm in charge of the professional services in Asia, and one of my team did the implementation of Fujifilm in Singapore for the accounts receivable module, as well as the implementation of the Peppol. On my side, I'm still on the old slide. Maybe Simon, if you can go 2 slides ahead. Yeah, correct, that one. Thank you. So that's what we have implemented for Fujifilm. So that's the Esker AR solution with 2 different ways to deliver the invoices to their customers. One is by email or web using the customer portal, and the other one is the EDI methods, which was mainly for the Peppol communication, the Peppol sending of the invoice to their customer. So in the standard solution, these formats are already available. We are also doing some archiving, so the customer can decide to archive their document up to 15 years. In Singapore, we just need to do that for 5 years. So that was the duration selected by Fujifilm. And as soon as the invoice is ready, you still have steps where you can do some review, which was an important features for Fujifilm, because certain invoices are a bit complex. And before sending the invoice to the customer, they want to have a step to review the document, make sure that everything is tally, as well as attaching supporting documents. So it's also part of the standard features we have in Esker, where you can add any supporting document that can be done automatically. So we have a solution embedded in Esker to do these attachments inside with the invoice, or you can also decide to do it manually if there is to attach to an invoice. As soon as it is done, you can automatically send the document to your customer. So when we have done the implementation, there is most of the invoices that are automatically sent through 2 batches. So the invoices are calculated twice a month. So it's batch that are sent to us. We are reformatting the document, adding logos, etc. And then based on the method that is selected for the vendors, we either send the invoice using email or send the method using Peppol. The next slide, please. So the transition on the project for Fujifilm was initiated with 2 goals. The first one was for them mainly to be able to switch to e-invoice. All their invoices in Singapore was printed documents. They were using their printing facility and using the postal mail to send the documents to all their customers. So the main goal was to switch to e-invoice. That's what we did. So it was more than a year ago now. We started the project in end of October, and they went live on December 2019. So it was a 2-month project, quite straightforward, because AR, it's really a standard solution for us. And the main complexity with Fuji was mainly on the mapping of their invoices. The way their invoice was built was with a very large field with a lot of information. So that's something we had to work with their IT team in order to be able to do a really seamless mapping between their invoice on our solution. The second goal was to enable the Peppol invoices, B2B first, and then B2G. So they started to have a small traffic with business to business, but today the main traffic is business to government. That's where they have most of their invoices. Volume remain low in terms of Peppol today. We are speaking about 100, 150 invoices a month, while Fujifilm is sending between 25,000 to 35,000 documents every month through the 2 batches. Today, they achieve, and I think that's really the main achievement on their side. It's they did their transition to e-invoice from printed invoice to invoice, and they reached the 100%. On the next slide, please. In terms of KPIs on benefits for Fuji Xerox, so they are able to process their invoice 3 times faster, which is a great achievement. They are saving a lot of time on their side, and the impact is as well on the payment of those invoices. They did the transition to digital invoice, which was the main target. They also got some cost saving that was important, especially because they stopped printing documents and they stopped using the postal mail services to deliver the invoice. On their side, they did this transition to digital invoice, but it's also 100% adoption for their customers, either receiving invoices by email, going to our portal to download themselves the invoices, or using the Peppol network to receive the invoice. And finally, today, they have a full visibility of all the invoices that are sent to their customer in one dashboard that are giving them immediately all the KPIs about the invoice sent, the invoice that are in error, etc., which are, again, standards information given by Esker. That's all on my side in terms of feedback. Eric, I don't know if you have anything else to add or you would like to add.
No, I think that's it. Thank you, and thanks for having us today. I hand over.
Thanks, Olivia.
Thank you.
Thank you to Fujifilm, and it's good to see an e-invoice sending example as well as a receiving example. So next up we have a B2B-E, and B2B-E is a global cloud-based ISO 27001 accredited B2B messaging and Peppol access point gateway service, supporting global procurement, procure-to-pay and order-to-cash processes that can automate and streamline your organization's business processes, increase productivity, and allow accounts payable and accounts receivable environments to reduce overhead costs. So I'm pleased to invite Manas Sardaf to talk to us through one of their most recent case studies. Over to you, Manas.
Thanks, Matt. And thanks everyone for your time. As we all know, e-invoicing has been a key initiative with the Australia and New Zealand government. So I'm just going to talk through who we are as a company, what we do, as well as what we are able to provide as a solution provider, and provide some case studies and what benefits that we can bring in. So next slide, please. So I'll just do a bit of introduction of who we are and our solutions and how we differentiate in the market. And if required, I can answer any questions. Next slide, please. So obviously we are a global company. We have established in 1998, so we have been growing rapidly. We started from Australia, and traditionally we have been dealing in EDI, which has been nearly 15 to 20% of our network, the 15 million messages going through our network. 15 to 20% are invoices. So you can imagine the amount of invoices going through. We have been operating over globally, and we are into different sectors. We dominate the electrical hardware, industrial, as well as office products. So next slide, please. And as you can see, we have nearly 27 billion worth of trade going through our network, and we are connecting to around 60, now nearly 60,000 every day. We are adding new trading partners on our network. So as we can already see, B2B itself, from a e-invoicing perspective, we have been doing a traditional EDI-based invoices, but Peppol is just another method of doing these same invoices. And there are a lot of suppliers that are already are doing these with, say, retailers such as Coles and Woolworths or Countdown in New Zealand. They have their own formats. Obviously, The issues with those formats are because those are more P2P or peer-to-peer based connections. Those are traditional EDI based connections, versus Peppol will give its own different benefits in terms of ability to do a sort of a more automated way of calling other service provider and provide flexibility to different businesses. Next slide, please. So we have a very, very large global footprint, as well as in our key A-NZ customers. We have been embarking on e-invoicing journey. We have quite a number of customers that we are turning on and enabling them Peppol as a default. So we are doing a lot of registrations in the Peppol network. So instantly, whenever government agency dealing with these suppliers, they will have the benefits of already the suppliers being Peppol compliant. And obviously, we are doing some pilots with key agencies as well as suppliers that are willing to do Peppol. Next slide, please. So our main aim is to reduce these, as already a lot of people have touched on, in the manual handling of these invoices are costing the economy a lot. And obviously there are a lot of delays in terms of payments. That's where we come in. The Peppol network comes in, the access points come in to able to reduce these and give you a cost benefit perspective. So next slide, please. What we aim to do is 100% electronic. That means it's as I say, no soldier left behind. That means we want to do no invoice left behind. We want to have a 100% invoice capability that will go via Peppol network. How do we do that? We are doing this by a traditional EDI Peppol method. So or a method where we are electronically integrating between two businesses. Corner 1, which is the supplier, going into Peppol network, and corner 3 for acting as a corner 3 for the government agencies for transmitting back to the EDI file, as a lot of other participants have touched on. Apart from that, we also are providing a supplier portal for free for the suppliers, that they can come in and able to do these messages if they are not able to do an integrated solution, or they don't have a system that will be able to produce a Peppol-based format or an electronic file-based format. Still, they will be able to do an electronic invoice. And lastly, but not leastly, if they are not able to do any of these solutions, and if they continue sending paper-based invoices as well, some of the even handwritten invoices, we are able to create an electronic file or Peppol file out of it by our managed OCR solution. So we want to entirely cover the head to the tail. So larger corporates, they will definitely do Peppol, but the lower end business suppliers will also have the benefit if they are not using solutions such as Xero, MYOB, which are the top agencies that the top SM small business providers. They will have the solution, but if there are other solutions that they are not able to get onto Peppol, we still will be able to automate those. Next slide, please. So just a case study we have just done. We are in the midst of doing a first B2B sort of implementation. So we're here, New Zealand Safety or Blackwoods is looking to send invoice to Landcorp, which is a semi-government based agency in New Zealand. So we have incorporated New Zealand Safety. We are taking the invoice from New Zealand Blackwoods NZ Safety, their invoice in their current ERP format. We can convert that into the Peppol UBL. We do the address lookups and transmit it to Landcorp. And so we are doing this 4-corner model in this space. The major benefits that they're looking currently is, obviously they are traditionally doing EDI, but at the same time, they're getting the benefits of being able to connect to multiple government agencies at the same time. So this is kind of the first kind of semi-government to a Peppol-based supplier that will be turning on. The other, next slide, please. So other one that we are looking to do is and this is particularly interesting, is we are looking, and I made this case study on a council basis because a lot of federal bigger agencies are having the big budgets, and they're able to do a lot of different things. But we are doing a pilot with a council, a local council, and we are having one of the Office products, Wink, or which you commonly know as Office Max or Staples. They provide stationery to these councils, and we are doing the same four-corner model for them. Out of which Wink, they're on SAP, large vendor, but council small scale, or a little bit more lesser teams in terms of IT, in terms of adoption. Fairly is driven mainly by the ERP solution providers. So I guess that is kind of the first step for the councils as well. In this exercise, we have found is, the councils themselves have a lot of things to catch up in terms of ability to transform, as well as be able to consume these formats. So their ERPs are working towards that. Majority of them are dominated by companies like Tech One, which will be a Peppol compliant ERP provider themselves, and we can connect to any, as an access point, connect to any ERP in that sense. But the councils themselves are having those kind of initial journey of adoption. And so we think that this journey, hopefully the mandate is in for next year. This will, majority councils will get to see some amount of benefits, but we see this process will be quite slow in terms of adoption, just because of both the energies from the supplier as well as energies from the council that are required for this adoption. But this is a great step, and credit to Shard Van der Ragen, who has stepped up into this this solution, and they have taken this as a first council in Australia to do this pilot. And so we are looking to put this in live soon, so that they will get that benefit and that adoption going. Next slide, please. So I might just conclude on how we can do a full end-to-end purchase to pay. I guess that's our dream, I guess, in Peppol, that we not only get these invoices in, but we can send back a invoice response. So which is another an added feature that this Peppol solution will give, is the invoice response going back to the supplier, so that they are able to understand where their invoice is, what is the processing step that is happening, are there issues with their invoice. So they will have the full visibility of this. So once we have this full solution running, I guess this will raise the bar to go into the next stage where there is a purchase order. So the future is bright in terms of Peppol, and we see that there will be a lot more benefits and a lot more electronic documents exchanged on Peppol network. And from B2B perspective, we will fully support this network, because we already are seeing some benefits that are with the existing suppliers, and hope to add to those benefits. So I'll hand over to Matt, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Manus. Appreciate that. Now we'll move on to Storecove. And Storecove are a Peppol e-invoicing specialist with years of experience delivering Peppol access point services all over the world. Whether you're a software provider, a company, or a government agency, Storecove's experience and solution maturity make them the perfect Peppol partner. And today we've got Chris Elliott, the sales manager for A-NZ for Storecove, and we've got Trent Smith from Prime Minister and Cabinet. Over to you, Chris and Trent.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for having us. As the intro said, my name is Chris. I'm the Australia-New Zealand Sales Manager for Storecove. And of course, Storecove is an accredited access point provider everywhere in the world Peppol is used, including in this region. Because we need to keep this fairly brief and we only have 10 minutes, I'm going to skip past the usual what is Peppol and what is an e-invoice type stuff, just so that we can focus on the actual use case and hear from the end users. We aren't going to use a PowerPoint presentation, and instead, as the intro said, we're going to have Trent from the Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet here as one of our customers to tell you in his own words about their Peppol journey. I'm going to try and ask him as many questions as I can before we get cut off. So welcome, Trent, and thanks for agreeing to participate in this.
No worries, Chris. Thanks for inviting me. It's actually a pleasure to discuss our implementation of e-invoicing. As Chris stated, I work at the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, but we also have 2 other agencies that we currently offer shared services to. So all our implementations are rolled out in all 3 agencies in our finance system.
Cool. All right. So to start at the very beginning, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about how Peppol e-invoicing came to be on your radar, and perhaps touch on what it was that you hoped Peppol could deliver for PM&C.
Yeah, sure. So back in November 2020, so last year, the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet was mandated to be e-invoicing enabled by the 1st of July 2021. This mandate also was linked to the 5-day payment terms. So this was something that we needed to take special attention to. Even though we didn't really have a choice about whether to adopt or not, we were interested in the benefits that e-invoicing could deliver. For example, from my understanding, is that Peppol invoices is basically a data file instead of a flat document like a PDF. This means the automation can be built to grab the invoice information and import it directly into the back end of our finance system, making it a lot faster. This would also mitigate the manual data entry that an AP officer would do. Would also give us more correct data and possibly free up time from that AP officer to do more meaningful tasks instead of just sitting there all day doing data entry. Another aspect that we liked with the Peppol network, is that it could mitigate some of the risks around vendors being impersonated. As this is a method of delivery with e-invoicing, it is linked directly into the vendor's finance system as well. So yeah, I guess even though we knew we had to do something, for us it was about how quickly we could become enabled, future-proofing the option that we choose and utilising the benefits and ensuring that we could get the maximum value out of this over time.
Okay, cool. So having made the decision to become enabled to receive the Peppol e-invoices, and after having done some research and gained a fairly high-level understanding of the concepts and the framework, how did you actually go about it? How did your project start?
So back in November last year, when the announcement was made, the Australian Tax Office, or as known as the ATO here, they were really proactively promoting the rollout of e-invoicing. They were running monthly workshops for all government agencies to get on board. They were discussing all the different options that people could take. The ATO did really, really well on this. And then slowly, as people took on their Peppol providers, they asked those different departments to actually show what they'd done and explained it. So from there, the ATO created a supplier panel for all government agencies that they could jump on and source Peppol providers. So that was pretty much where I started off. I went through the list of Peppol providers, randomly picked out 6. Now, all 6 of these Peppol providers gave us demonstrations on their offerings. It was a really big eye-opener for me. Some providers use different integration methods, different pricing structures, different solutions. So while on paper these seemed fairly similar, it wasn't until we saw the solution working, that the extent of the different solutions became clearer. This worked really well for me, gathering information on all different types of options available to us.
Okay, so how did the implementation unfold in practice? I mean, after choosing Storecove as your Peppol partner, what was your experience like actually getting up and running?
Yeah, sure. So after the contract was signed with you guys, wow, what can I say? The build time was surprisingly quick. I was quite shocked, actually. It only took a couple of hours. I received an email within a couple of hours from Storecove saying it was up and running. I was a bit shocked. I went and logged in. And then you guys started sending me test e-invoices within 2 hours. Then we rolled it out with the other 2 shared service agencies, and it was just as quick. Like any implementation, we had a few teething issues, not too many. Storecove jumped on these straight away and fixed them overnight. So the next morning I came in, that was up and running. A few more test files came through. Perfect.
Okay, so given you're effectively in production now, what do you see is the next phase for you? I mean, how does this evolve from here? You mentioned kind of at the start that you're receiving PDF invoices and the XML files. So what does this look like going forward?
We've just onboarded a new agency. Before, as part of the rollout with Storecove, we are receiving an XML file with the PDF email. With that XML file, we've had the ability now to start building some automation, and only this week rolled out auto matching of an invoice to a contract claim in our test environment. We'll be working over the next few weeks to roll it out into our production environment once we know it's working. Storecove also offer a few other formats of files to come through that we would like to test in future as well. Technology One has an updated module that we would like to use, and it uses a different format called JSON API. Storecove also offer that kind of format for us. There's quite a few formats there that Storecove have as an offering, which I guess if we change finance systems over time or whatever, we could contact Storecove and find out what other options are available. This all works with the automation into our finance system. And once we complete our upgraded projects, we'd like to build sending our invoices out to other suppliers as well. At the moment, we just wanted to receive the invoices, run with that, make sure it's all running fine, then we'll start looking at the outbounding invoices. We're also aware that Peppol includes more than just e-invoicing. So once everything is bedded down, we're sending invoices, receiving invoices, we can start looking at other documents such as purchase orders and contracts documentation. The other aspect of our relationship with Storecove, which is really good, and with these other documentations that you can send through the Peppol network, there's no extra additional charges, which is really good. Storecove, it's all part of the setup and the subscription that we've got with them. It's really enlightened us to what a great company Storecove has been.
Awesome. Thanks, Trent. I think that's just about our time up. We might have run a little bit over, but if anyone would like to know more, they're more than welcome to contact either Trent or myself offline. I'm sure if you reach out to the folks at DSPANZ, they'll be happy to pass on our contact info. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Unfortunately, with all this great content here today, it means we're now running about 15 minutes over time. So I hope you can all stay with us as we continue the invoicing case studies with Pagero. Pagero is dedicated to building the world's largest open business network, enabling you to trade with all of your buyers and suppliers from day one. Please welcome Pontus Hansen and Bertrand Gauch from Pagero.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Great event today, Simon, and everybody else involved so far. We're gonna start looking at a customer case here in Melbourne. And they are Atherton, and they are focusing on providing sterilization equipment to the healthcare industry here in the region. So I'm Pontus Hansen. I'm the co-regional director for Australia and New Zealand, and I'm here together with Bertrand Gauch.
Hi everyone, I'm Bertrand. It's a pleasure to be here today and share insights with you on one of our Australian customers, Atherton. So let's get into it, and I'll ask for the next slide, please. So before Atherton ventured into their partnership with Pagero, the majority of their overall AP process essentially involved managing PDF invoices. So as a result, their AP department was faced with the mundane task of handling all the supplier invoices 100% manually. And with manually in the case, we mean truly 100% manually. What that means is they were receiving, printing, scanning all documents every month just to carry out the accounts payable function. And so from there, this was where the idea was first formed by the Atherton team that there has to be a better way. And we'll come back to that in just a moment. Next slide. Atherton is a family business established in 1889 based out of Melbourne. They have about 120 employees that deliver world-class sterilization solutions to the healthcare industry, all developed and manufactured right here in Australia. And it was in 2018 when Atherton first engaged with Pagero after years of looking into OCR solutions in order to solve the ongoing changes around the purchase to pay process, without ever finding something that really matched expectations. So before we look at what they have achieved with e-invoicing, I'd like to give you a very quick overview of Pagero just to provide a little bit of context. Next slide. So what we've been focusing on over the last few years is building the world's largest open business network. Today, we have 5 million businesses trading over the Pagero network in 140 countries, and we've been doing this since 2008. And since 2012, Pagero has been a key driving force behind Peppol and an active participant in the Peppol forums and associations, with always the intent to truly deliver and enable as open and seamless trading as humanly possible. So with that in mind, our ultimate objective is to enable any business to connect with all their trading partners through one single connection. Next slide. The Pagero network is built to enable the full purchase to pay and order to cash process. That covers all messages from the order to the delivery note and the invoice at the end. Now, we're not just focused on working for the buying organizations, but also actively provide value to sellers and their order to cash process so that we can enable as much digital trading as possible. Now, because organizations invariably use various platforms, formats, and business processes, it's really critical for us to be able to support any business, regardless of their size, regardless of their ERP, compliance requirements, or business processes. And this means that we not only enable Peppol trading or connections to other networks or trading via our web portal, but also fully support data capturing, mailing services, email distribution, so that our customers can have one single connection for 100% of all document flows. So with that said, let's get back to the Atherton case and what they've achieved so far. And on that note, I'd like to hand you back to Pontus.
Thank you. Next slide, please. So for a few years, Atherton had been looking into various methods of streamlining their accounts payable processes, which at the time, as Bertrand described earlier, was a very time-consuming and costly process for them, involving printing PDFs, converting them back into PDFs after 3 or 4 people had handled them and finally archived them. And they had actually been looking into various OCR processes and software of that sort in order to get rid of this manual data entry. But from previous experience of that type of technology and missing links in the solutions presented to them, it led that they never actually pulled the trigger, if you will, and jumped aboard. Instead, they wanted to wait until something that actually matched their expectations come along. So we met in 2019, and from that, from the get-go, it was quite clear that Pagero could tick all the boxes in their digitization journey, starting with the e-invoice. Next slide, please. So a bit of detail around Atherton. They are using IFS for their ERP system, which is a very powerful AP module that can take care of PO matching on line level, deviation handling, and more of that type. For it to function at its best, the most accurate, clear data is an obvious prerequisite to make that happen. So we initiated the implementation project. It took us around 2 months in lead time before go live with the full UA team and end-to-end testing. And after that point on, Atherton since has been receiving 100% of all their inbound invoices through Pagero without any manual handling before it hits IFS. So as of the time of writing, suppliers can communicate and trade with Atherton in any way that best suits their business and business processes. And that means either through interoperability on Peppol, which they're of course enabled from the get-go. It can be direct integration through Pagero directly or through a web portal, whatever that means. So at this stage, the result is that they currently receive 40% truly digital e-invoices end-to-end, system to system, not meaning PDFs or any of that semi-analog format, but true invoices, e-invoices over Peppol, etc. While 60% of the volume still come through Pagero, but through our data capturing solution that is managed for them to ingest and convert them into e-invoices as well through this same flow. Next slide, please. So that is what we've been doing so far with them. Now, what are the outset and where are we heading together, and what are the next steps for Atherton on their e-business journey? Well, it comes down to 3 things. The first is hitting a target of having 85% true e-invoices end-to-end, even though it's 100% digital through Pagero already, and everything coming one channel. The data quality and quick turnaround times makes e-invoicing the clear goal for them. In order to reach that and to help automation for suppliers, they're looking to add the purchase orders to present their Pagero as well, as this not only brings value to the suppliers to get that straight into their system, but also ensures an error-free process, even for suppliers behind the portal, for example, because it enables them to just flip them into invoices and into order acknowledgements, etc. And lastly, they also look to enable sales orders and outbound invoices to be handled through Pagero as well, as more and more of Atherton's customers within the healthcare industry are getting ready to start trade digitally with them, and Atherton are ready and prepared for that. So before we conclude, were 4 recommendations from them that we asked before we came here, and what they wanted to share specifically with anyone who's listening. And the first recommendation is think how to tackle onboarding. How do you get your suppliers on board, and how do you actually go about that? It's really important. Technology is great, but the other half is actually communication and talking to them. How do you do that? And second, look over your company's needs for improvements and do the maths, because by doing so, you will understand the true value of trading truly digitally across the entire board. It does not just affect the AP function, but procurement, delivery, supply chain, you name it. And third, making the switch to digital is a triangle between the company, your ERP system, and Pagero. So make sure to include everyone so that you can get the best optimal output after the process is done. And last, make sure to keep a close eye on market development And a recommendation there from them was Pagero's, and I represent Pagero, of course, is make sure to keep up to speed on the various local requirements, especially if you're trading internationally, where e-business requirement, compliance requirements are popping up more and more frequently, not just here in the APAC region. Next slide, please. That was everything from us today. So if you want to reach out, you have the email on the screen. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Bertrand. Now, I know we're still running tight for time, but next up we have Robin Sands from Link4. And following Robin, we'll have a short update from Perry from the ATO and Stu from MB around government adoption in Australia and New Zealand. So over to Robin.
Great. So we're going to have a look at the Department of Treasury case study. And so we'll, before we get into the implementation part, let's look at what Treasury were looking for with e-invoicing. So the first slide starts to talk about the criteria that they listed at the beginning. So they wanted to have a certified Peppol access point, of course, because that means someone's gone through the process and proven that they can actually do the work. There's also the Peppol panel, the preferred suppliers panel. That shows that there's an extra layer of refinement that people have gone through to support this Australian government. Link4 were on both of those lists, so that made it easy for a Treasury to select Link4. But the second point that we come across here, or the next point rather, it talks about Technology One as being their ERP system. Now, Treasury wanted to make sure that there was a connection that they could use into Technology One, and they didn't want something to be built on the run or added in later. And through the tender process, they found that Link4 had already built this connection with Technology One. We've tested it, it was ready to go. So that made it simple as well. The next couple of points on the screens talks about security, which is, we've all got that. We have to make sure we have it. Competitive pricing, pricing is key. Do warn against, by the way, of just looking at pricing or having that as the main characteristic. There's no point in being able to get something that's really cheap now and like converting an e-invoice to a PDF perhaps, and then not being able to actually implement e-invoicing properly into your ERP system later. So make sure that the solution is there to be able to connect to later on. And I do get a little bit frustrated when people ask, is e-invoicing sending or receiving? Reality is e-invoicing is both. It's sending and receiving. It shouldn't be differentiated. The Australian government, I know, are mandated at the moment for receiving, but hopefully, like other governments, they'll be sending and receiving mandated as well. And that's what we try and talk to all of our customers about, is making sure you can send and receive and making sure that that solution is there right from the start. Delivery within 4 weeks, we'll touch on that a little bit more in a minute. But the final point on this list here is about supplier onboarding. And this was key for the Australian government, for the Treasury Department there, because they didn't just want to have an e-invoicing access point that was sitting there, they wanted it to be used. And so the question was, how do we get our suppliers to connect on? And if we go to the next page, we can see that Link4 have been around since 2016, working with small businesses in Australia. And we were able to understand how to onboard small businesses to the e-invoicing network. And it's not as straightforward as what you expect. Now, on this slide, by the way, we say that we're Australian, and it's not because Australian government departments like to work with Australian businesses. This is put there so that we can show we work with the Australian SMEs, like we understand the culture here. Now, Link4 is available in other countries. SMEs in other countries work differently. The messaging is different, and we have to interact with them in a different way. But one of the key things for Treasury was that we'd refine this onboarding process with SMEs in Australia, and they could tap into that, and that was key. If we go to the next page, it's true that with the Peppol network, you don't need to know what your supplier is using, but it makes it easier if you can recommend or have a suggestion in place. So like Link4 is connected to all of these simple cloud accounting systems that we've got there that small businesses use. We've been doing that, most of them since 2016. We're just always adding more in. if an agency can go to their suppliers and say, e-invoicing is great, by the way, here's a solution that you can use, here's someone we recommend, it makes it easier than saying, e-invoicing is great, go find something. And so we try and make this very simple for SMEs, and the cloud systems, you can sign up just in 2 minutes and be on the e-invoicing network. ERP systems, of course, there's an implementation to be involved. It's not long or complicated, but there is a little bit more work to go into it. Oracle is one of the key ones that we're connecting with for government. But of course, the Treasury were interested that we did Technology One, and we've got that Technology One connector and that solution already in place. So moving across to the next point, we can see the implementation. It was seamless, it went smooth. So all the departments work well together. That's Link 4 with the Department of Treasury and as Technology One as well. All the teams did work smoothly there. We did extensive testing. Okay, we knew that it would work, but we just wanted to give confidence to everyone that we could cover all the scenarios and just prove that we've got everything ready to go. There's a dashboard involved, so Treasury can actually look at an individual invoice or look at all the invoices they've got. There's some great reporting behind there and meeting their needs, and we can do that for any department. There's training too. E-invoicing is actually very easy, and you don't really know that until someone tells you that. So we gave the team confidence by giving them that training. Included in the training is a section about FAQs for onboarding the SME customers, just to help answer the basic questions that the trading partners have. Timely, well, the department wanted to implement it within 4 weeks, which we did that, not a problem. We actually, most of our implementations are less than 2 weeks, but we also did it at the right time that Treasury wanted that implemented. So we know all departments are different, and we can try and schedule that in so that we can do it at the right time for the department. And they've been live now for about 6 months. So they've got a good story. You can reach out to them. Actually, they're a great reference for us. We've also got the Department of Industry, Geoscience Australia, the Sports Commission, APRA, and a few others that we're currently implementing. I actually think Link 4 is the most popular access point with the federal government right now, which is a good thing to do. But if we go to the next slide, this is about the implementation for Treasury. We covered off some short bits there and a little bit brief based on time. There's a written version. If you email me, robin@link4.com.au, I can make sure you get a copy of that written version. So it's robin@link4.com.au, and you can see how Treasury implemented that and some more technical statistics there. So that's Link 4 and the Treasury. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Robin. And now we're over to two speakers from the ATO and MB respectively. So we've got Perry from the ATO, who will tell us a little bit about the Australian government adoption. Perry, have we got you?
Yes, we do, Matt. Sorry, just sorting out the mute problem. Good afternoon, everyone. Now, I'd like to focus on two main themes of work. The first is that e-invoicing is happening now. Momentum is building across all sectors. And the second theme is that the government's committed. Starting off with some of the momentum. Now, e-invoicing has a large network of accredited access points already. We have 27 accredited, with many more underway. We're already starting to see solutions in the market. You heard a little bit earlier that MYOB, Xero and Intuit are good to go. And between them, that's a huge amount of SMEs with e-invoicing capabilities. At the larger end of town, the ATO is working very closely with our larger ERP and FMIS providers, and many have already demonstrated e-invoicing capabilities by connecting to an access point, one of our accredited access points through our pilots or going live. We've set up a champions adoption network, and in this network, we've been fortunate enough to have leading Australian businesses really starting to charge and drive forward with leading and driving e-invoicing adoption throughout the country. We've experienced a significant spike in registrations across the Peppol network in the Australian space. From just February to May, we've seen a 10-fold increase, and this is growing by the day now. On the government side of things, we already have 13 Commonwealth agencies enabled, and by next month, I'm hoping that number will be over double. State government is also supporting federal government very closely, with New South Wales already enabled 26 agencies, and recent comments from New South Wales Minister Dominello has announced a mandate for the remaining New South Wales government to get on board. We've got 4 more states or territories that are in the progress of an RFT or piloting for e-invoicing, and 3 more that the ATO is in discussions with and looking to progress solutions we can share hopefully very soon. The other point I wanted to focus on is that the Australian government is committed. Now, I'm not sure if anyone's noticed, but over the last 4 budget cycles, e-invoicing has appeared in every single one of them. Each time the government incrementally putting more money and further initiatives to progress this within the economy. I'll focus now on last year's budget, where they announced a mandate for all Commonwealth agencies to be e-invoicing enabled by 1 July 2022. What this means, on top of the number I shared earlier, by 1 July next year, we should hopefully have approximately 98 or even more Commonwealth entities that are e-invoicing enabled and trading with their suppliers. To further show our commitment to the digitisation agenda, these Commonwealth agencies have decided they'll pay any eligible e-invoices within 5 days. In the most recent budget announcement, you would have seen as part of the digital economy strategy that Minister Hume kindly shared earlier, that e-invoicing was funded for a further 3 years, and that was for the ATO to increase the awareness and education and adoption rates for e-invoicing within the country. What does that actually mean? We'll be delivering a series of pilots. We'll continue work with states and territory governments, and we will continue some of the great work going on and really drive educational activities, awareness activities, promotional, to make sure businesses, service providers, intermediaries, and governments at all levels really understand e-invoicing and the benefits associated with that. Last but not least, as part of that budget measure, it's been announced that Treasury will shortly go out for ideas about regulatory and non-regulatory ways to improve e-invoicing adoption, which will hopefully lead to more and more work, funding, and initiatives to progress this within the country. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Perry. So I'd now like to invite Stu Ross, who is the Manager, Operations and Promotion e-invoicing at the New Zealand Peppol Authority, to update on the situation in New Zealand. Stu.
Thanks, Simon. Kia ora koutou katoa, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to share what we're doing in New Zealand. Probably to start off talking a little bit about some research we did recently, which we wanted to do to sort of inform how we sort of go forward with it, trying to increase adoption in New Zealand. And just a couple of key points, and I'm going to share that research through DSPANZ to share out throughout the network. And if anyone wants to doesn't get it, just feel free to contact me, because we're happy to share, because I think it helps grow our understanding around e-invoicing. So we undertook some research with large business and government, and we did some deep insight work to really understand where people were at. And there's just a couple of key things I wanted to share. One of them was that people felt they were already doing it. And when I talk to other people, they're saying they hear this as well. People, when you talk to them about e-invoicing, they say, yeah, we do that because we send all our invoices go as PDFs, or we always receive PDF invoices, or we're doing EDI. And the second key point was that people were unsure about how to get started. So one of the things that we're doing is we've recently engaged a communications agency to help us and think about how do we actually get our message out there to support adoption, support the service providers, access points, and software providers and customers to get on board with e-invoicing in New Zealand. And there's a couple of key things we're focusing on. The first is around what is e-invoicing, to kind of address that issue that people have got around thinking that they're already doing it. So what is it, and what are the benefits of doing that for their business? And the other is around how they get started. So for those in New Zealand who have had a look at our recently launched website, e-invoicing.gov.nz, we tried to focus and think about it, take a very customer-centered approach, and think about the different customers or audiences that might want to learn about e-invoicing, whether you're a large business or government, whether you're a small business, or whether you are a software provider. So you can actually come through and understand how you actually go about getting enabled for e-invoicing. I'm going to tell a little story here. because I think it kind of illustrates where I kind of see things in the landscape. Because as you've heard, there is already stuff happening with e-invoicing. There's some fantastic case studies in there and about businesses being enabled. If you cast your mind back to your first dance when you're at school and you walk into the hall and boys go to this side of the hall and the girls go to that side of the hall, and then the music starts playing and it takes a while for the dance to happen. And no one wants to cross the floor and to ask someone, because one of the part of it is they're not actually sure if their people on the other side actually want to dance with them, and it takes a bit of a while for people to get into the groove and go. And I think that's a fantastic analogy of how I see e-invoicing, because I see people on who are enabled to send and people who are enabled to receive, and they don't actually know that the people that they transact with on a day-to-day basis are actually enabled already to receive e-invoices. And I kind of go back to what Matt Prowse was saying before about the conversation with with your suppliers or with your buyers, is actually have a conversation, say we're enabled, or we're enabled to receive, or we can send an e-invoice. Can you actually receive it? And actually start those conversations. And I think another important part of the journey is when you're thinking about embarking on it, don't wait till you've actually done it to actually have that conversation with your suppliers or buyers and say, hey, right, we're now enabled, get on board. So we're going to go on the journey, and why don't you actually come on with us? One of the other things I just also wanted to share is I was talking with a small business owner recently that's been working with us on e-invoicing. And one of the things I always felt that, we always talked about the benefits for e-invoicing largely with the receiver, and you generally thinking about the larger business. But this small business owner was actually saying that once they actually got on board with understanding what we're doing with e-invoicing, they started actually, instead of when they got an invoice from one of their suppliers that was working within the same software system as them, they always opened the PDF, but they had the opportunity to open the link and open it within the accounting software that they were using. And I think that's one of the first early opportunities, even though that's within system, the opportunity that obviously e-invoicing does is, across system, as we know. But if we can start that conversation and you can start having that situation where people actually click to actually view those invoices within their system, I think that's one of the early starting points in how we can actually get that behavior change. So probably my final point is, I guess, really the next thing that you will see from New Zealand, it's a bit like Perry was saying, and doing the same thing over here, is we'll be actually out there actively really trying to push and promote and engage and start the conversation, or sort of continue the conversation around e-invoicing to get people to really understand what it is and actually how they get on board and actually get some movement across the network. So thanks for your time today.
Thanks, Perry, and thanks, Stu. And thanks to everyone. We apologise that we've run over time, but we've had plenty of people stick around. So thanks for hanging around. And we're up to our last presenter now. So I'd like to invite Christian from Ozedi. So Ozedi delivers critical data swiftly, securely, and cost effectively from superannuation to payroll and e-invoicing. Ozedi is the trusted choice for government and business. So please welcome Christian, Ozedi's CEO, who will be talking about e-invoicing.com website. Over to you, Christian.
Thanks a lot, Matt, and thanks to everyone who's stuck around. A lot of good presentations. I've deliberately decided to do something a little bit different today and keep my presentation extremely brief. But before I get into that, I just want to mention, obviously, I'm the CEO of Ozedi. As Matt said, we are an access point, fully featured access point. We're on the government panel. We've got a number of large implementations. Just to mention a couple, we're the access point for Assurity in New Zealand, which is the largest consulting company in New Zealand. We've got an implementation live there, sending to IRD, currently in operation. And just to mention another name, we're working with Bunnings as their access point of choice. What will be a very large campaign to transition the Bunnings trading network to e-invoicing in 2021. So we're working on a lot of exciting and big things, but you can find those out on our website and you can find those out on the government panel. Today, what I wanted to show you was something a bit more specific about supplier onboarding. If I can just just work out how to share my screen here. There we go. Okay, and so what I want to introduce today is a website that Ozedi has built called E-invoicing.com. And what the purpose of this is supplier onboarding. Now, we've heard a couple of people speak about it, but it hasn't really been a big feature. And once you get connected to an access point, that's sort of step one. That's half the job. But then you want to make it easy for your trading network to send you e-invoices or to receive e-invoices from you. And that's not always so simple, because what you're often dealing with is a very long tail with a very diverse mix of business management and accounting software. E-invoicing.com today has over 350 business management systems listed here, which is leading in Australia and New Zealand. There's no other website like it. And basically, you can direct your supplier network or your trading network to e-invoicing.com to find out how they can actually get connected to the network. And so I'm going to give you a very quick example. So let's say, for example, I'm a supplier to government, but I'm using MYOB, and I've been asked to come into e-invoicing.com to find out how it's working. And let's say I'm using MYOB Essentials, a desktop version. So not one of the cloud versions that was spoken about earlier that's going to have its own connection, but I'm a desktop user. Can I send or receive an e-invoice right now today? Well, this very, very quick search uncovers 3 different solutions that actually enable sending and receiving from my business management or accounting software today. And not just today, I can also see that some features are coming in the future. This is a Peppol comparison table that displays the different functions and features of the Peppol capability of that solution, and also covers off on whether or not the solution is locally hosted and whether or not that data is remaining in Australia and New Zealand, so on and so forth. So I know I've only got 5 minutes, and this is a very, very brief presentation, but essentially e-invoicing.com is a website that Ozedi has built to encourage and assist not just Ozedi clients, but the whole market to get their suppliers on board. Now, Ozedi itself, we're connected with over 100 software platforms. And as I said, we've got a lot of major case studies out there in the market. But today, I just wanted to focus in on supplier onboarding and how that's made much easier by e-invoicing.com. I hope I've covered it in 5 minutes. Back to you, DSPANZ. How am I going, Simon?
You're doing great. Thank you so much, Christian. And thanks, Ozedi, who are one of our founding members. That's a great way to conclude our showcase, and echoing Matt's apologies that we've run long. So thank you, everyone, for attending today. It's been great to hear from so many of our DSPANZ members and from the Australian, New Zealand and Singapore governments. This showcase has been recorded and will be available to everyone who registered, as well as our DSPANZ members. You can find a few links on your screen. So we have ATO and New Zealand e-invoicing websites, and MB, as well as e-invoicing.com. And of course, you can find us at dspanz.org. So thanks again, everyone. And thanks also to Matt Lewis as co-moderator for the event today, and to all our presenters. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Simon.